Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Today we have with us a special guest, Anke Johnson, functional nutritionist and equestrian. Even though she said she's not really incorporating that into her practice right now, I think it's an important piece of who she is. And she's here to talk to us all about all things forward and up wellness. Welcome to the show, Anke.
Thank you so much, Jill. Great to be here.
So how did you get started in all of this, and how did the horses fit in?
Yeah, well, the horses did fit in at one point, absolutely. And I think they will again. I think like many people who are in any kind of the healing arts is that they start with their own journey. And I think without getting too deeply in depth with it, that's really where I started. I have always been more of what I was called a sickly child, especially with a bad stomach. In the 1970s, you could never put me in the back of the station wagon because otherwise there would be a mess. So I really grew in my late 30s to look for and search for answers for health and healing, because I wasn't really getting them from where I was looking in the medical community. Mm-hmm. And I want to be very clear that I think the medical community is fantastic and every area has its own purpose. And I do believe that we are very empowered to be able to do our own healing. And that's really where it starts, because we're with us 100% of the time and not the 1% of the time that you are potentially with somebody else, with a doctor, for example. So yeah, everything for me really took off when I was in perimenopause, and my menopausal symptoms were absolutely horrific. Maybe I'll get into those in detail later on or not. We'll find out. And the horses fit into it, into all of this healing, in that I've been a lifelong equestrian for 52 years. I started when I was 7 years old. And I've had a horse for the last 30 some years, and they are incredible beings that provide so much for us in terms of reflection and being able to look deeper into ourselves and really understand what we need from a healing perspective. And I think for the general public, the horses really come into play when you look at something that we're all familiar with, which is stress and stressors. And they are really good at pointing us in the right direction when we are in a stressed state that is then going to be affecting our health. So that is, what's that?
I said, that's interesting. How do they do that? I mean, I have a little experience with horses. And by little, I mean very little.
Yeah. I mean, so when you think about a horse from the physical sense, they're just such big animals, and there's many people who are very afraid of them. But they are actually very, very sensitive and in somewhat fragile beings, even in their physical size. But it's in their sensitivity where they, being a herd animal, they're the kind of animals that communicate for the most part silently. So it's the twitch of an ear, it's the twist of a tail. It's how they either want to approach you or stay farther back from you. So for, I guess, an example that everybody could probably relate to, if you walk into a room and you have a crowd of people, there are certain people who you're going to want to gravitate toward and certain people who you're going to be repelled from, basically. And the horses give you that either attraction or repelling very clearly when you walk into their space. So they will either come into you, or they will look at you, they'll take one look at you and they'll say, hot mess, and they'll walk the other way. And so if you are open to that kind of communication, there is a lot that you can take away from that, especially if you're just coming into their world after you've been in your business world all day long and they walk away. That's a great time for you to reassess yourself, take a lot of deep breaths, and figure out maybe you need to do something a little bit different before you go and catch your horse.
That's really fascinating. I have two kind of short stories about horses, in that we walk by horses every day when we walk. And there's a one horse that's on the first part of our journey, and then a couple horses on another part of our journey, and then more horses in other places. I live in the country. So, and this isn't a neighborhood. It's a neighborhood. We have horses, we have cows, we got goats, we have peacocks. So sometimes the horses will come up to the fence when we go by, and sometimes they're just like, no, I'm not dealing with you today. So they'll be far away.
Okay.
So I think it's kind of interesting. And I can think about, my thoughts at the time. So I'll be watching that. And then my sister had a horse when she was a teenager. We lived in Las Vegas, and they went to Nebraska on vacation, and I had to stay home because I was working. So I got volunteered to take care of this horse that I knew nothing about. And in one day, this was the only day I took care of the horse, because he sprained my hand, stepped on my foot, ran me into the barrels, and rolled over while I was cooling him down. Because my younger sister told me, you got to make sure you cool him down. So you got to walk him around. And he rolled over like a dog. I thought he was dead.
Oh, no.
I told my dad, no, I'm done. I'm injured now. I have to go work at this fast food restaurant. My hands hurt and my foot hurts. It's just like, I'm over this horse.
They will help bring out a lot in you if you want to listen. That's a big piece.
I'm sure that he was just like, you are a hot mess, girl. I don't want you anywhere near me. Go away. Here, let me help you not want to be near me, because I don't want to be near you.
Right.
So as a functional nutritionist, how do you help people? Nicely, Lloyd, could just
good segue. Great. So actually, you can think of it, you can connect it and segue it from the equestrian part to functional nutrition. So when we think about nutrition, we can think about it from the rote manner of, well, I'm going to create a meal plan for you, and that meal plan is going to have 5 meals a week, and it's going to have snacks in it, and it might be low glycemic because maybe you need a low glycemic diet. And that's one way of being a nutritionist. A functional nutritionist is one who looks at the big picture, who looks at everything, who looks at how your whole world, the person's, is interconnected. And that goes from how are you sleeping? How are you moving? How are you eliminating? How are you pooping? What is going on with your metabolism? All of these types of things, lifestyle and nutrition related. And so in pooling together all of that information, we get a much clearer picture of what may have happened to you individually as you were growing up or as you moved through life. And we kind of I call that upstream. So what has happened to you upstream in the river that might be affecting you downstream now, where you might have certain issues that you would like to change. So that could be, in my case, a horrific menopausal transition with all of the beautiful symptoms that were there. It could be weight loss resistance. It could be that you're diagnosed with cancer or another type of disease. It could be and I'm putting this in air quotes for you who cannot see me. It could be something as simple as I cannot sleep. I'm sleeping 2 and 3 hours a night, or I wake every single night at 3:30 in the morning, and then I cannot get back to sleep, and then I'm just completely trashed for the next day. Moodiness. So all of those things are not normal. But unfortunately, in our society, there's a lot of those things that we have actually put a normal label on because there's so much of it. It's so prevalent. So from a functional nutritionist side, I'm looking at that whole picture, and more importantly, I start to dig my hands into the soil or the terrain of what makes up your root system, if you will. Where are you growing from? So that we get a really good picture of what do we need to do in that terrain, that foundation, that root cause to help you grow and flourish from what we might see above the root system.
Do you use medical tests for diagnostics? Is it more on the intuitive side? How does that part work? I know some functional nutritionists use some diagnostic tests to start with. So,
and I think that's going to vary with the practitioner that you choose and you work with. I do work with a lot of different medical testing. So I will look at your existing serum lab tests. If you have other tests as well that I feel competent to give my opinion about, I will do that. Not being a licensed professional, I cannot give you a diagnosis for things, nor can I prescribe anything. But again, I'm going to take all of that information into that terrain. The other thing that I do, and I order for people, is I will order urine tests, saliva tests, fecal tests that give us information about how your gut is functioning, what is happening with your endocrine system and all of your hormonal systems, so that when people do have imbalances in those areas, we can get a lot more clarity and really kind of pinpoint and target things so that we're not guessing.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I know everybody does things slightly different, but and that again is where, having a connection with the allopathic community really does help make the whole process come together in a way that really serves your client's best interest.
Absolutely. And from that intuitive place, so I'm also a Reiki master. I also do EFT, which is emotional freedom technique tapping work on meridians. So I definitely have a woo-woo factor that I like to call a woo-woo factor, but I do work a lot with intuition because there is an absolute scientific connection between what you are feeling in your gut where the majority of your nervous system, I mean, there's a lot of nervous system in there, there's a lot of immune system in there. And you can take that from a practitioner standpoint and then apply it to your clients. Yeah.
Yeah, it's our second brain.
Yep.
The vagus nerves it's like what you feel in your body is part of what you're feeling in your head. And
Right.
we've gotten to the point as a society where it's just like life only exists up here.
Right.
This is just like for carrying us around. Don't look under the cloth.
Right.
But that's where it really, we're designed to be like a whole being,
Right.
not just a head, floating heads. So yeah, it's really important that people understand to be able to tune into what their body is telling them.
Right.
Sometimes that's a process for people.
Yeah. And I would say, so from the way that I prefer to practice, I work with people who have been chronically unwell. And so that can be a wide breadth of things. And in working with people who are chronically unwell, you cannot expect, a quick fix change. And unfortunately, in our society, again, and definitely on social media, most of the things that you will see are these quick fixes. And that's not where I work. I work for long-term sustainable change for people. And that's the type of change that requires the individual to be able to look at their lifestyle, to make conscious decisions around how do I want to feel better for the long term, so that in my case, that I can be 80 years old and still ride my horses and have fun and do all the outdoor physical things that I want to do, instead of being so bloated and gassy that I can't move off of wherever I'm at. But that's the kind of things that I think is really important. It's long term, and so we do a lot of things, small steps, but that takes time. But then it's long-term change.
Yeah. And it's the little steps that help people to make big changes, instead of thinking that, I've been really ill for a long period of time and tomorrow I'm going to suddenly feel better. And, I watched television for the first time in many, many years, and I was astounded. I think I made it for like 30 minutes. And about 15 of those minutes were pharmaceutical drug commercials
Yes.
to help people get that immediate change in the way they're feeling. But
Right.
that's not sustainable.
No.
And it's gonna, all of the side effects include death. I mean, it's just like, that's just how it is. And they have to tell you, and you can hear it on the commercials.
Right.
So, maybe you need a drug to help you function. And I totally get that. And there are some drugs out there that really can help you even longer term, like metformin. I've seen people use that. And I've heard, I'm not a doctor and I'm not dispensing medical advice, but
Right.
it seems like it's one of the kinds of things that it's been around for a really long time. They know what it does, and it really does help as far as regulating blood sugars.
Right.
But some of these other things that are new and experimental, and people get on them, and they're not consistent about following up with the testing to see what's going on, how it's really affecting your body.
Mm-hmm.
And then they end up, 10 years down the road, and they're in big trouble because they didn't address the underlying cause of the problem to begin with. And now 10 years have gone by and they're experiencing all of these side effects.
Right. Right. And so that's, I mean, there's a couple of things in there. So when I look at things from a functional perspective, I'm looking at what's called clearing the muddy waters. So what you just described are muddy waters. So you can go in and temporarily make a change that is a Band-Aid that will help you to feel better. And in certain cases, again, I'm not a medical professional. I want to be just very clear on that. In certain cases, it's actually really good to be able to kind of give you that jump start, maybe with that Band-Aid, so that you can actually move past certain things. So for instance, that will happen frequently when I'm working with somebody who has chronic pain issues. If they have chronic pain issues and they cannot move and they are constantly in this cortisol stressor state because of this pain, can we relieve the pain long enough so that they can start to make some moves forward to clear those muddy waters, to start to help, clear that terrain that we talked about? That's where it's good. But we don't have a deficiency in pharmaceuticals from our wellness perspective. And so when we're looking at creating any kind of a deficiency and moving it to a sufficiency to where your body is functioning better, the pharmaceuticals are not necessarily part of that. Nutrients are things that your body can actually use to heal. And so that's where, again, looking at that bigger picture, uniquely to the individual, because we are all unique. Everything in our body is interconnected, as we were just talking about the vagus nerve and the brain and the gut. You cannot look at any of these things in isolation. And that is, unfortunately, when you look at some of the things that you were talking about with the pharmaceuticals, some of those areas are looked at in isolation, and that does not help. So you have a compounding of issues that prevent us then from actually becoming well. And for some people, Jill, I think this is really important to share. For some people, they're happy with that. That's what they want. And so by all means, I don't ever prescribe to, and I do kind of play on that word, prescribe to saying that there's a one size fits all approach. There's not, because I think the majority of the population, which is why you see as much advertisement on social and on commercials, things like that, that are geared towards more of the quick fix. Healing the other way, healing from a functional perspective, from a slow as fast perspective, as I say, is one that is going to take effort. It's going to take time. It's going to take work. It's going to take investment. So.
And making different decisions. You can't
Absolutely.
just randomly eat whatever you want and drink whatever you want and expect something to happen differently in your body. And,
right.
Different things affect different people in different ways. And sometimes it's a matter of trial and error to see what the thing is that's triggering your body to cause the dis-ease in your body.
Right. And it's also a commitment, or an agreement rather, with yourself from the mental emotional perspective, knowing that you are going to be what I call recycling. So it's moving forward, and then it's having what we again would call a failure. I don't call it a failure. It's an experience. It's an experience, and that experience has led you to maybe the path that you don't want to go. And so that recycling comes back to, well, where was it in that process that I kind of lost sight of my actual goal, or I went on a different path that took me into a different place that I don't really want to land in. And so that recycling is really, really, really important. And, being kind to yourself through this whole process is probably kind and loving, and seeing your self-worth, that in and of itself is a huge journey. And that's where the coaching comes in.
Yeah, you can't heal just like you can't think that you're going to heal your body without healing your mindset and your soul and the trauma that you've gone through in life, because it's all connected. And
Right.
there's some evidence that you store your trauma in your organs if you
Hmm.
haven't processed it, and
Yep.
you're not going to heal until you get through that. Just the way it goes. So do you
Absolutely.
mostly coach people one-on-one, or do you do groups?
Well, great question. So in the evolution of my business, I am currently right now only doing one-on-one, but I am going to be, and in fact, I'm building the information to do not group coaching per se, but more, I guess, what we call evergreen programs. So if somebody is not ready to do one-on-one coaching, or they really would like to kind of experience a little bit of what functional work might be like, but they're not 100% sure,
Mhm.
then an online self-directed program that is shorter in length can be a good option for them. And that is one thing that I'm building. And then in my 2 to 3 year plan, I'm looking at having private retreats. So
Oh,
where
I
you
like
can
that.
fully immerse yourself for, 5 to 7 days, somewhere like in the Dominican Republic or Costa Rica or something like that, where you really can focus 100% on yourself with yourself and have that experience to either complement one-on-one coaching or to even launch you forward toward one-on-one coaching.
That
Yeah,
sounds like a terrific idea. Just to let your body and mind have a reset away from all of the stressors and triggers of everyday life, because it's
right.
really hard to change habits. And a lot of it just comes down to habits. Our
Yep,
decisions become automatic, and that's how habits are formed. When you're in the same situation, uh, without removing yourself, sometimes you can remove yourself and have another experience. Then when you go back, you can consciously make choices around what it is you're going to do.
right. And you see things that you didn't see before. So, a mentor of mine, she uses an example of putting on red glasses. And when you put these red glasses on, everything that you see is red. No matter where you look, you're always going to see some hue of red.
Mhm.
And if you can take those glasses off, like you said, for that brief period of time, even if you come back and you've got those red glasses on again, maybe you might start to peek over them at times. Or maybe you'll block one of the eyes, whatever, you'll be able, like you said, you'll be able to see things differently. Um, and it really gives us that more primal opportunity to really dig back into who we really are as beings. I mean, we are animals. So if we are constantly in a state that doesn't allow us to ground, um, and pull into that primal need, or all of these different primal needs,
Mhm.
then yeah, that will bring us into kind of what I call head in the clouds, where we just can't see the forest for the trees anymore.
Yeah, and it's you just get caught up in everyday life, and you do the same things and you make the same decisions and you have the same thoughts every day,
Yep.
and not changing, having the ability to look at your thoughts to begin with, and
Right.
then start to change how you think about your thoughts
Yeah.
and how you let them run wild in your head or take control of them, also plays into how you're going to make changes in your life.
Right.
Everything starts in your head.
It does. Well, and kind of circling back to the horses, equine assisted coaching, which I don't do formally, or equine therapy, for example. This is why involving the horse in these things is so fantastic, because they don't have any tie to an outcome. They don't need to have a certain outcome. We do. And so when we are with them and we are in that state, it allows us, they give us the gift of not maybe responding in the way that we would expect or want them to respond. And the more that we push for something like that, the more apparent it becomes what it is that we actually need to be working on. So it's very grounding. It's very, very grounding. To be able to work with them from that perspective.
Do you think your retreats will include horses? That would be fun.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and that's one of the things I would love to include the horses. I would love to include movement modalities, things like yoga and meditation, but also obviously really good access to just really vibrant live foods. So nutrition that brings life and doesn't take life away. That's going to be a big piece of it.
Yeah.
Sleep, rest.
Introducing people to, sleep is a big thing.
Yeah.
Introducing people to real food, live food and helping them to understand that it can be delicious. Because I think people look at vegetables and they're just like, oh, gross.
Absolutely.
And, to be fair, a lot of people grew up on canned vegetables or vegetables that are frozen.
Yep.
And not prepared particularly well. And, they can be really bland and kind of gross. But, drowning them in ranch up, as we call ranch dressing around here.
Yeah.
is not a solution, because that's just like a whole bunch of chemicals that you're adding to your body that your body really doesn't need.
No. And I mean, our palates change as we grow up. So, a child, typically their taste buds are not developed in a certain way so that they, they may not like certain foods, but then lo and behold, at the age of 18, they're eating, I don't know, 50%.
Sushi.
They're eating sushi or some of these things that they weren't eating before. But yeah, I think one of the most fascinating things for me, Jill, is so I meet and work with a lot of people with constipation issues. And constipation is, it can be not being able to go, but it can also be that whole spectrum of going too much. So diarrhea, or what we think about with constipation. But what's interesting is I introduce them to what I call a microbiome mash. And it's basically 10 to 15 different types of vegetables that could include mushrooms, it could include sprouts, it could include all kinds of different things. And really you want to have it seasonal. But basically the purpose for this is to feed the bacteria in your gut, in your microbiome, which then has many other benefits. What I always find very interesting is that even my firm non-veggie eaters, I can convince them initially, I'm like, just give it a try. And so they start eating it, and within typically anywhere from 48 to 72 hours, I get some kind of a response back from them that says, I feel incredible, or I slept so well last night, or I finally pooped, and that's always yay. So, it's fascinating to me how the body will heal and utilize the things that it needs, and it has this inherent wisdom. And if we give it just a little bit of what it needs, what it actually can do for us. It always fascinates me.
Yeah, there are some building blocks that were designed to consume so we can keep our bodies healthy, and we've just like off the two leaves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So how can people get in touch with you, and where where would they go?
So the best place to reach me is through my website, and that's obviously www.forwardandupwellness. So all one word, or all together rather. And the and is AND. So forwardandupwellness.com. And through that website, you'll be able to see a lot of different information about who I am, what functional nutrition is all about. And then there are, if you go to the resources section, there are a whole bunch of really good educational pieces, videos, links to all kinds of different things. So you can have a lot of fun playing in that area. And that's all free to you.
Awesome. We'll be sure and put the links in the show notes.
Thank you.
So what's the one thing you want to leave the audience with that you hope they take away from our conversation today?
Well, there would be many, but I think the one thing that I would love for them to take away just associated with me, and that is slow is fast. So working in a way that you feel might be slow, so not going for the quick fix, is actually going to heal you much faster, and it's going to be a permanent change. And that's going to give you the things like joy and choices and light and doing the things that you want to do and giving you the ability to do them. So that's what I'd love to leave everybody with.
I couldn't agree with you more. Drip of water will wear away a rock over time.
Yeah, there you go. Beautiful. I love that. I love that.
So thanks for joining me, Anke.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jill. I really, really appreciate coming on. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order, or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.